Hey guys, how's it going? I sorry. I left my window open last night, and I think I may have caught some pollen, slight allergies. If I sound a little husky, it's springtime, so it's that time of year. But so, uh, you can't tell based on this background, but my apartment looks like a nuclear explosion went off in it. Um, and I think I'm going to be spending most of today cleaning and doing laundry. I also desperately need to do laundry, and I'll do dishes as well. But yeah, my apartment just looks horrendous right now. So I'm very glad that this background at least looks nice. Um, and I'm also going to be reading today. Obviously, I'm doing a buddy reading, The Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri with Sean the Bookmaniac. And we've already read the first two short stories in that collection, and he's enjoying it quite a bit. I'm sort of having mixed feelings, but anyway, I'm going to be reading that today as well, and I'm looking forward to it. Um, but I'm not looking forward to the cleaning. So I sort of thought I would console myself by doing a little, not a little, a haul of some books I've acquired lately. Um, because I enjoy hauls, I enjoy making them, I enjoy watching them, and I enjoy getting everyone's thoughts on the books when I post them. So, as always, give me your thoughts on the books after if you've read them or if you know of them. Um, but yeah, I've acquired a bunch of books that I again don't really need. I think I might actually order yet another bookcase online, and I think this summer I may try to rearrange my apartment a little bit, or more than a little bit, and so that my bookcases are all in one spot. I'm not sure I can manage that, but I would really like it if I could. Um, so we'll see. That'll just make it. I don't know. I feel like that'll make the number of books I have a bit more manageable somehow. But I'm also thinking pretty soon that I might stop separating my read from my unread books. Um, just because I have so many unread books that it almost seems a little ridiculous to separate them from the read books, you know? I don't know, but it's not a big deal. But anyway, I thought I would just go through these books. I acquired them from a few places, and I'll go through that as I go along. And the first one I just picked up at the for free shelf at the library, and it's Jersey Rain by Robert Pinsky. Robert Pinsky is a former U.S. poet laureate, uh, and I had heard of him. I hadn't really read any of his poetry. I had seen a short interview with him once where he sort of decried the phenomenon of slam poetry. And yeah, I mean, yeah, so I didn't really know much about him. But I had always thought it might be cool to read him, and this was for free, so why not? And yeah, I have found some really nice poems in here, and one of which I could say is a new favorite, and others that I really liked. I'd like to do one of my poem reading videos on one of the poems in here. I just realized that I had forgotten two books that I also grabbed at the library for free shelf, so I just got up and grabbed them. The first is What Is to Be Done by Vladimir Lenin, which was a surprising find. But yeah, so this is his book about Bolshevism and Marxist revolution, which should be interesting reading. And the next is What Is to Be Undone, and this is a collection of essays by 20th century Marxist thinkers, and the sense I get is just sort of how we can change Marxism and communism for the better, and because the Soviet experiment was kind of a disaster. So how can we sort of do it better, essentially? Yeah, and they seemed like an interesting pair to find together. But anyway, the next set of books is a set of books I got from Barnes and Noble. So I got a coupon. Excuse me, I got a coupon for $10 off an order of $50 or more. I just recently got my tax return, and it was quite generous, so I have just been feeling kind of wealthy the past few weeks. But yeah, so I ordered $50 worth of books, and yeah, actually, come to think of it, yeah, that is these books. Sorry, and so it's a bunch of ancient literature. So we first have the Idylls of Theocritus. Oh, you are not going to be able to see that title there. But anyway, this is Theocritus is a very famous Greek poet. He sort of initiated the whole tradition of pastoral poetry, poetry about sort of shepherds in the countryside and stuff. I got interested in him because I saw that John Milton references him quite a bit in his poem Lycidas, which is a poem I really like. I was reading some footnotes about Lycidas, and yeah, so I got intrigued about Theocritus, and I'm also just generally into Greek and Roman literature. So yeah, and I've actually read the first poem in here, and I quite liked it. So yeah, and the next one, sticking with lyric poetry, we have the Poems of Propertius. Again, these Oxford World's Classics. Not easy to see that title. But yeah, he's a lyric love poet. I mentioned him yesterday in my tag video yesterday. But yeah, it's these are both Oxford World's Classics. And the cat is stepping in front of the camera. Yeah, so I have also read the first couple of poems in here. Yeah, they haven't struck me too much yet, but I'm hoping that I will find some that I like. And the next is another book I mentioned yesterday. It's On the Nature of Things by Lucretius, a nice Penguin Classic version. And yeah, this is a long didactic poem where Lucretius discusses Epicurean philosophy. And it's a book I've wanted to read for a very long time. And I'm hoping I can squeeze it in next month. I don't have any buddy reads next month, so I think I should be able to. But yeah, anyway. And then the last book I ordered from Barnes & Noble was On the Sublime by Longinus. This edition is kind of crappy. It's actually just a Project Gutenberg ebook that someone just put into a real book and printed, I guess. So it's like, you know, the text is like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like an HTML text, and it has like at the beginning it has like sort of all the random things you find on a Project Gutenberg ebook, and then at the end it has all the stupid like contract stuff that you find on Project Gutenberg files. But anyway, this is sort of a short treatise about the Sublime in literature. It's one of the earliest pieces of literary criticism that isn't by Aristotle. And I thought it sounded quite interesting. So yeah. Next is a set of books I ordered from Amazon, and I ordered them for no other reason than that I felt like it, and I had the money because, again, I just got my tax return. So yeah, and in my defense with these, there are 4 books here, and 3 of them are books I've already read that I just wanted copies of because I liked them a lot. But the first one that is not the case. This is Plainwater, Essays and Poems by Anne Carson. So Anne Carson is a Canadian essayist and poet. She's also a classicist. She has a PhD in classics from, I believe, the University of Toronto. And yeah, I have been looking up an interview. I watched an interview with her. I watched a talk that she gave, and just thought she was incredibly intelligent, incredibly eloquent, and funny. You know, she has this sort of very flat, dry delivery that somehow works. You would think it would get boring, but it doesn't. When she's giving like a lecture or something. And yeah, so I just got intrigued to read some of her work, and it says both poems and essays, so it'll give me a good taste of both sides of her as a writer. Yeah, anyway, I'm looking forward to reading this. And then the next one is Electra and Other Plays by Sophocles. So this is basically all the plays that Sophocles wrote that survive that are not the Oedipus trilogy. And yeah, he I read these in the past and liked them a lot. Electra is the basis for one of my favorite operas, Electra by Richard Strauss. But I also really liked Ajax. In fact, I think Ajax is actually my favorite play by Sophocles. And the next in a similar vein is The Persians and Other Plays by Aeschylus. And yeah, again, this is just the plays by Aeschylus that are not the Oresteia, essentially. And yeah, so Prometheus Bound is in here. The Persians, obviously. I like The Persians, and I like Prometheus Bound. I don't remember much from the other plays of Aeschylus that are in here. I do want to reread The Seven Against Thebes by him, because that tells the same events as the Thebaid by Statius, which I'm going to be reading later this year. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted a copy of this because I like Aeschylus. So, and then lastly, a book I read just last year, The Ecclesiastical History of the English People by the Venerable Bede. Yeah, I made a whole video about this. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I do see myself going back to it at some point. So yeah, and it's also just a book that I liked well enough that I just want, to commemorate on my shelf. And then finally, I have a set of books from a bookstore that I found in Chicago. I went to Chicago this past weekend for a conference, an academic conference. I presented a couple of posters, and the poster presentations went well. But I also discovered a lovely little used bookstore pretty close to where the conference was taking place. Yeah, and it wasn't huge. It's not it's not anything mind-blowing, but it's nice to just discover these random little nice used bookstores, and also all the proceeds from this used bookstore go to a charity that help disadvantaged schools in Chicago. So yeah, you're buying books and contributing to a good cause. So yeah, it's a double duty. So anyway, yeah, I found some very good books, and the first one was a book I had never heard of before, but it's The Cloud of the Unknowing and Other Works. You see it's very beat up. They actually gave it to me for free because of how beat up it is. Yeah, so this is, from the sound of it, it's a work of medieval Christian mysticism. And I had never heard of it. I mean, I've heard of some of those Christian mystics, like St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross and others, but I had never heard of this. And I've wanted to read books by mystics and about mysticism for a long time. It's one of those sort of reading subjects that, I've had at the back of my head, but just haven't had the time or initiative to follow through on. So, yeah, so now I can at least read this, I kind of love finding these random books that I've never heard of, just because I like the idea of finding and reading sort of obscure books, so that was kind of cool too, but anyway, yeah, this is, should be interesting. Next is, another book I mentioned yesterday, the Odes and Epodes of Horace. This is the translation by Joseph Clancy, and this will be the third translation of Horace that I am trying, and the other two have been kind of lackluster. Yeah, they've been okay, but not great. I definitely got the sense in those two others that I was missing a lot, and also that the poetry itself just wasn't all that great. And it doesn't sound like Horace. It sounds like Horace is a great poet. So, if this translation doesn't satisfy me, then I might just have to give up and accept that Horace is sort of a closed door to me unless I were to learn Latin. So, Yeah, and in a similar vein, this is an anthology of Latin poetry, all verse translations, and yeah, it has all the great Roman poets. It has Ovid, Horace, Catullus, Tibullus, Propertius, Virgil, and as well as some lesser known ones. But yeah, anyway, I thought that this was a little gem. Yeah, anyway, so that was a good find. And here we have again, this next book is Robert Pinsky. This is the Sounds of Poetry, and this is just a brief guide to poetry, basically, for both readers and writers. So that kind of book is totally my jam. So I read the first like 15 pages of it and was liking it a lot. So I will finish it at some point. Next is The Rhinoceros by Eugene Ionesco. This is a 20th century play, a very influential, prominent 20th century play, and it's about this city where people start to turn into rhinoceroses, or not rhinoceri, but anyway, whatever the plural of rhinoceros is, they start to turn into rhinoceros, and it's about this one guy who's like the last person not to turn into a rhinoceros, and yeah, I think it's sort of about Cold War conformity and things of that sort. It's the idea of turning into a rhinoceros is like conforming in a sense. I did at one point watch a film version of the rhinoceros with my grandpa. My maternal grandpa was a scholar of modern drama, so he plays like this were very much in his wheelhouse. So that's where I've heard of this. Next is the book I had heard of but didn't know all that much about, but it's Helen in Egypt by H.D. So this is a long poem that she wrote about Helen, as in Helen of Troy, but it's sort of supposedly about some years that Helen spent in Egypt, because apparently there's like a fragment of some lost epic about Helen spending some time in Egypt, and this is just HD sort of imagining that time in Egypt from that fragment of that epic. So yeah, I thought that sounded fascinating. I think, yeah, I don't know. I sort of wasn't like that into HD for a long time, and then Jason of Old Blues Chapter and Verse sort of at one point said that he loved HD, and I was just very struck by that because I had never really heard anyone express any sort of real passion for HD's poetry. I just sort of heard her mentioned sort of dutifully in the list of great modern poets. I had never heard anyone say like HD is my favorite or HD is one I love. So it was just it's I don't know, that's no reason to believe that she's not a good poet. It's just so I had never sort of been drawn to her, I guess. But then after Jason said that, I went back and reread some of her poems and realized that I actually do really like them. So yeah, I can continue reading more HD beyond what I've already read, which is quite limited. So yeah, and then more poetry. This is The Portable Milton. This is a great collection. This includes Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, all of his major lyric poetry, like Lycidas. It includes Samson Agonistes, and it has a number of his prose works too, some of his sonnets. So yeah, it's just a great collection and much needed because I have a book that collects a lot of Milton's lyric poetry and prose, but it is on the verge of imploding. Sorry, I got it at a used bookstore and it was just about ready to fall apart. So this is really nice because this book is pretty sturdy. I can reinforce it with tape and it'll hold together quite nicely. And then lastly is Francis Bacon, a selection of his works, as it's called. And yeah, Francis Bacon was Renaissance essayist. I think he was alive during the reign of Queen Elizabeth in England. And yeah, I read a collection of his essays last year, and I can't remember what the name of the collection of essays was. I think part of that collection is included in here. And I liked a lot of it. Not all of it. Some of it got a little bit boring. The Essays or Counsels, Civil and Moral. That's the essay collection that I read. And again, I liked a lot of it, and a lot of it I sort of didn't care for all that much. But I'm willing to give it that part another try. But another reason I'm interested in reading more Francis Bacon is because I from what I've heard, he had a big influence on the development of science, and sort of the philosophy of science. And yeah, and I am a scientist, so that's obviously of very practical, immediate interest to me. So yeah, I will probably chip away at this since it's kind of a collection of essays of his. But yeah, anyway, so that is just a large set of books, which again I do not need, but I again had the money, and we'll hopefully have the space soon. Yeah, and again, anyone has any thoughts, let me know. And it has indeed cheered me up. I think I certainly feel more cheerful at the end of this video than I did at the beginning. A bit more ready to face a day of cleaning and other things. So yeah, anyway, hope everyone enjoyed, and I will talk to you all in my next video. Bye, guys.